What up, what up? Welcome back to the Sneaker History Podcast. My name's Nick Engvall. As you can see, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm with my guys, Robbie and Mike, but I've also got the WearTesters crew, Chris and Drew, to talk about some performance kicks today. So what's good, fellas? How's everybody doing?
Good, man.
So far, so good.
We're
doing good.
It's Friday, man. You can't complain.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think we're just going to hop right into it because we got the experts of all experts on the show. So, I mean, Robbie and I were talking before everybody came on, and we just felt like if we were going to talk about performance in any way, we needed to have Chris and Drew on because obviously they're the go-to for any of this kind of information and knowledge. And they put in a lot more work in these shoes than we ever would. So I trust their opinions more than my own in most cases. So I guess
my latest performance review. No, I guess my latest performance review was the Realtree Crocs. So we gotta have the experts in here.
Yeah, what do you actually do for a performance review on Realtree Crocs anyway? Is it like kitchen work or is it like hunting in the backyard?
Nah, it's me with the switchblade breaking down boxes in the backyard for the recycling.
Oh man. So, I mean, obviously I think everybody probably knows you guys, but I guess the best thing to do would be, Chris, Drew, like maybe we do like a little 30-second rundown of who you are and WearTesters and all that.
Okay. So my name is Chris, known on the internet as Nightwing2303, and I run WearTesters.com along with Drew. He and I are co-founders. I've been doing the YouTube side of the wear testing since 2009, and Drew and I linked up somewhere like early on, and we just hit it off, became friends, and we've linked up. I think it was during the LA All-Star game, which we ran into each other there, and we kind of like reconnected and then started doing business together. But my priority with WearTesters is just basically wear testing all the basketball stuff, and then I also do like just the regular reviews, like if a retro product is coming or there's a new model coming out, and I'll talk about that stuff. So that's pretty much what I do.
Cool. Yep, and for me, I kind of think of it as I started the WearTesters.com site way back in the day, and I didn't even know Chris was doing videos. I had never even, like most people cite Professor K as the first performance review they ever read. I never even read him. I just started my own site because I couldn't find reviews, and I had just moved to a town with no sneaker store, so I was having to buy everything online. And started doing that in my spare time. And then Chris and I met when I moved out to the Bay Area. And I think that was like 2014 when I started working for PayPal. And so nowadays, I just focus on the business ops side of WearTesters. And then I also do running reviews with Chris's wife, Jody. She kind of carries the female wide footer view of running shoes, while I do the kind of normal foot, tall dude that is trying to run like he's still in high school.
You're a monster. You're a big dude, so you get some good wear out of those shoes.
Yeah, I like passing the small guys when it's in races, just to, kind of assert my dominance. Because it's tough out there in races, man. The little guys have an advantage, whereas I was used to the basketball court where the taller you are, the more advantage you got.
So what is one of the first shoes that you guys remember actually doing a review on?
Mine was the Jordan 2009. And that's when I started the channel. So that was the first one that I did. And then things just kept going after that.
That was an interesting shoe. It
was interesting. It was actually pretty good on court. It was pretty heavy, but all things considered, because that was before the super lightweight era of sneakers, the Fuse, the Lows, the Kobe 4s, things like that, the Hyperdunk. So that shoe, for someone like me growing up in the 90s and then even the early 2000s, it was almost a natural transition. Like it was still like they implemented some new tech in the rear. Then they had still like the nice materials, the leather and things like that, pleated panels for like, I think it was for fencing, and little callbacks to previous shoes, like the little hologram on the side and things like that. So so it was an interesting shoe, but when you look at like where they're at now, like with something like the Jordan 34 or even the 35, like you're just like, damn, that's crazy what 11 years can do. Oh, am I allowed to cut?
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I mean the same thing kind of in the running space, right, Drew? Like this year is kind of crazy in terms of all the, I guess like it's been a little bit more than a year with a lot of it, but a lot of the conversation around like, you know, what's legal, what's not, the, you know, stuff from the Alpha Fly or Next Percent stuff from Nike, and then the was it the Endorphin Pro from Saucony, and everybody's got some like crazy carbon kind of cantilever tech system right now. So.
Yeah, this year to running is an analog to probably like 1996, 97 in Nike basketball and basketball in general, because you also had Reebok out there doing cool stuff, and you just had a lot of new tech and new ways of implementing it. You had crazy things like the foam posit. So running's very similar. They've taken foam and carbon plates and the way they put them together and done it up. Every brand is doing it up just slightly differently, but the end result is something that's super bouncy and saves your legs over these long half marathon races.
I mean, this is kind of off topic, but is that something you think could ever be, or is there anything similar to that in basketball? Never really thought of it, but like basketball obviously have like flight plate and stuff that's, I guess, sort of similar. It's not as bouncy feeling though, is it really?
Yeah, well, I mean, they haven't tried to go super bouncy on the foam because of how unstable you get. I mean, Chris can talk to that
I
a
mean,
little
I've
bit.
tried stuff from, not from Nike in particular, but just from other brands, and uh, the bouncier the foam gets, the more like wobbly you feel, like under your feet. And for running, that could be cool, or you could just get used to it. I don't like running personally, so unless it's on a basketball court, so like I try not to do it, but I did get some run-ins like during like the early pandemic era or early pandemic phase or whatever of this year. And I used to run with my wife back in the day, but like nothing, I used to run at like Pegasus, so it's nothing crazy. But yeah, so like nothing too hard, but that flight speed, flight plate, eclipse plate, whatever that whole thing is, or just a moderator plate in general, that's probably like the closest thing we've gotten. So, and even the spring plate, if you date it back to, you know, 95 with the Jordan 11. So like they've been doing that for quite a while, but the foam compounds is completely different. Like one's stable, damn near neutral versus running, which is almost propelling feeling. So it's like pretty contrast, like a pretty good contrast between the two.
No, I was thinking because I was trying to think of a shoe that tried that, and my brain went directly to, I think it was the Harden 3. I feel like it was like really, like there wasn't a lot of the boost wasn't contained, and it felt really weird on foot trying to play in it. I had a pair and I just couldn't play because I felt super unstable because it was just a big slab of boost and it was just open.
Yeah, that one I personally did like because it was thinner than something that they used previously with the D Rose 6. That one was a platform.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
they even like, remember they caged it in that like EVA little carrier, but it was open. So those were a little like on the bouncier side. And even if you talk to certain, either the design team or one of the like product line managers, sometimes they have samples there that are just so nuts where you're like what happened here? And they're just like, it just didn't work. You know what I mean? Like we really wanted to do something outlandish and crazy. And even though whatever comes to market, we might see it and think that, they had something probably even crazier in the back room that we never saw.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, and the Puma Clyde L Pro that's right back there, that's got a P-Bax puck in the heel, which is, P-Bax is the same material as Zoom X, which Nike uses like in huge amounts for the Vaporfly and Alphafly. So it's starting to work its way into basketball, but you know, it's caged in there. And I mean, most people stay off their heels while playing basketball anyway. But I think all the designers are trying to figure it out. The Spencer Dinwiddie shoe was P-backs, but it's not as bouncy as Zoom X, the P-backs that they use there.
This one is or for those of you guys that can't see, it's 361 degrees, and they have Aaron Gordon from the Magic, and they use this stuff that almost started over at Skechers, the Burst technology or the Burst foam, and it looks like packing peanuts in person, and it's super interesting the way that they make that, because it's like a reverse of what they do with a like an EVA, like Phylon or whatever, where it could be injected or compression molded, and this stuff it's molded into something like this. Like, luckily 361 sent those shoes over to me. We haven't done a video yet, but they also gave me the tooling
Oh crap!
taken apart. And
dope.
this is like, this is one of the coolest things. This is the midsole setup for this Aaron Gordon shoe. So this black panel is, regular EVA. It's really comfortable, and they've named it Neofoam Organ or something like that. Like, I don't know what exactly that means, but that's just their trademark term, like Phylon would be or Cushlon would be for Nike. And then this is that material that's like a packing peanut, and it originally starts off like about like half the size, and then they put it in nitrogen, and it expands it. It's like real
crap.
weird. Yeah, it's super weird. So, and this stuff, you can see just the shape of it. Again, for basketball, it's got your zones for impact protection, like on the back, but you really don't want all of that up there in the front. So most of that is just kind of like at a landing portion or a landing spot. And then this is all like toe offs and drags, crosses, things like that, like fancy footwork. So you want all that stability there. So it's really interesting the way that they have elevated foams in general. Because I know back in the 90s, if you had a foam shoe, like it was like a brick, and you wanted something with air or hexalite or something, DMX, you know what I mean? Like, you didn't want like a basic Adidas with Adiprene, because Adiprene was like, so.
Well, that's kind of what we're seeing with like the Volume 5 Harden, because there's the boost drop midsole, but there's like a lightning strike container, which is like harder around it to keep the foam in.
Yeah,
so you still have more of the stability.
Even this shoe, with it being primarily housed in this EVA, they even put this extra panel right here that's all, a TPU, kind of like the Harden Volume 1, and they wrap from the heel all the way up to that forefoot area. It's super interesting. I really like the way that the shoe came together, especially with what they're using in it. And luckily, again, they sent this visual, because this is like a
That's cool.
Like, a shoe nerd's dream right here, is to be able to hold.
Yeah, definitely.
That's all.
Yeah, I'm like checking to see when this coronavirus thing is over, so I can come check that out in person.
Yeah, dude.
Most of us are comic book nerds, and those Aaron Gordons kind of look like the Batman Forever, like Mr. Freeze, kind of.
I am also a comic book nerd, and I just that thing is a killer shoe. So I'm excited to try those out whenever.
Yeah, eventually.
Because
that's a I mean, kind of a good segue though, because one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because obviously, like, we've known each other for a really long time, and I think, like, one thing I admire about what you guys always do is you kind of approach the idea of reviewing shoes the way I approach the idea of like collecting shoes, right? Like, it's like everything is on the table. We have to review damn near everything we can get our hands on. There's only so many days in the year to do that, but like, you obviously don't, pick and choose your favorites the way I would say a lot of people tend to do. And, nothing against that. I'm super biased too, right? Like, Chucks and Questions are levels above everything else in my collection, but this year has been really interesting, with a lot of just like crazy energy, and it's a little bit longer than a year. It's the last few years, right? But like crazy energy around the young guys going and getting their own signature shoes from some of these other smaller brands. I personally love it, but I wanted to know if you could talk about your experience with those shoes, because I know you've been reviewing a lot of these, and probably reviewed 361 shoes well before most people in the States even knew they existed. I mean, a lot of people probably still don't even know they exist, but this Aaron Gordon shoe, I think, is going to be the start of something pretty major for not just 361, but everybody else as well.
Yeah, I think that this shoe in particular, compared to the previous models from the brand that I've tried before, this thing is just based off of trying it on, feels like any other shoe that you'd get here in the States, which is good. So over there, I can't grab it right now, but it's the one that he was supposed to wear during the All-Star game. I don't remember if he did exactly wear it. I can't remember, but it's a little bit different, and it has a lot of that burst like cushion exposed, and I didn't like that shoe. So like I can already tell just from a try on what they've changed and tweaked, and I already like it more. I used to actually wear or test Kevin Love's shoe when he was with them way back in the day, pre Cavaliers Kevin Love, and so that was interesting because that was around the same time frame as all the Hyperdunks. So it was a heavy plastic based upper. I don't love those. I like a little bit of everything, and that's what this shoe has. And then other Chinese branded shoes, I think are, especially right now, like damn near just like a Nike. So whatever you like over there, they're probably doing it too, and they might even be doing it a little bit better. Like this, for example, is a TPU like shank that you would have at the midfoot. And this is one option for this Aaron Gordon shoe that they have available right now. But later on, they're going to release the second one that is a full carbon fiber. And this is some of the thickest, strongest carbon fiber that I've seen on a shoe in a long time. And you don't see those things on Nikes and Jordans usually. So if you like all of that like extra beefed up support, then that should be a good thing. And then as far as seeing like all these new players, at first it's weird because back in the day we're used to the elite of the elite, and now we have no shots fired, but Jeremy Lin, unfortunately not in the NBA, but with his first signature shoe, and then he's on a G League team for 10 days. So I just think it's really interesting that we've gone from the top of the top to almost everybody's got one.
Everybody get the shoe.
Yeah,
Gordon Hayward, like
yeah, the shoe is actually really good. So I have a second one right there, and I haven't hooped in that one yet, but that one like looks super dope. I don't. Sorry, guys.
He just hurt himself again. Like, did he break a finger just now?
Yeah, he just hurt his finger.
It does look really good, though.
This is
That's a dope looking shoe, though.
Nuts.
Yeah.
So I'm actually surprised at how nice they look. And if you go and just do some research and figure out who's designing these, like you wouldn't be surprised that that's, you know what I mean? Like you'd be like, oh, okay, like that's why they've been elevated so much.
Yep.
They've been poaching, and and I think it's smart. Plus, their manufacturing is all over there, so they see a lot of this technology before even we do, and they're already deconstructing to reconstruct it, like reverse engineering and stuff. So, I wouldn't sleep on them. It's just hard to get.
For sure, I was going to say that too, and I think you brought up a good point though. Like, if you pay attention to the designers, even just like the product line managers, a lot of the people have a lot of experience with the brands in the States, and ultimately, it seems like they're given a lot more freedom when they go to these, I guess like lower popularity brands in the States, and it's awesome. It's awesome to see. Like those two shoes are perfect example of people, I think, that probably would be designing some mid-level shoe for a Nike or Adidas or something, and now here they're getting to do a signature shoe, which means there's a lot more options for them to to be creative. One of the things I was actually going to ask you, just like a personal favor, just talk to the brands and just say that, like, yo, I have a friend that wears a 13. Can you I don't need free shoes, just sell a size 13. All of those shoes are so hard to find a bigger size in, man. It's like, it seems like they're all about like, it's tough.
Overseas, it's really interesting because the demographics are different. And so if you were to even compare a China region release Nike versus a US release, that even the lasts themselves are different. So like one's built on a wider last because that's traditional over there, that they have wider feet versus over here in the US. And then for sizes, so over there they told me that people don't usually go past a 10. And so if you could find a 10.5, you're lucky. If you could find anything above that, you're super lucky because it's usually a PE, like just for the player.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Now the rubber's also different, right? Like, do they always use like XDR rubber on all the Asia release shoes typically?
On the Nikes, yes.
Okay, just the Nike. Okay.
Yeah, and a Jordan.
Yeah.
But I don't know what, like Adidas or whatever. I don't know what they do.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm gonna like, I guess, throw a little bit of a curveball here, but I know that 361 is also actively trying to get, a bigger presence in the U.S. For like the running segment, and I've seen them reach out to a few boutiques, and haven't quite. I don't think they've quite figured out how they want to position the brand in terms of the running space. But Drew, I wonder if you could talk to any of the opportunities, or even some of the people that might have done some of the moves into that. Like, I know we talk about, the traditional running companies, right? It's like, the Asics, the Saucony, obviously Nike, Adidas, but there's a lot of brands I think have, clearly they're putting a lot of research into the R&D, and obviously not everything can cross over from basketball to running, but it seems like there should be opportunity for somebody like 361 or maybe even Anta or Peak to kind of start making moves in that space too, right?
Yeah, well, the company that makes Jeremy Lin's signature shoe, they actually started as a running brand, and the CEO just wanted to sign Jeremy Lin, and so they signed Jeremy Lin, and then they're like, oh crap, and so they hired some design talent from the United States to help make that shoe. So that's a case of it going the other way, because they're leaning on the running technologies that they already have at the brand, and then kind of on the other side with basketball coming to running. I mean, I really think that carbon plates mostly started in basketball. So you're talking, when was the first one? 90s sometime, and then slowly, the first place it went to is spikes. So people figured out, oh, okay, having this carbon backing on spikes, it really helps with that bounce. And then in the process of making the Vaporfly, Nike decided to sandwich it between foam, and that kind of changed the game a little bit in running there. But I even think Adidas is a good example. They took Light Strike from basketball. That was the first place they put it, and then now it's in some really well-respected running models. They're SL20, and they just got a new one out, the SL20.2. And then they took Light Strike and they made it slightly different, made Light Strike Pro, and that's what's in their Vaporfly, Alphafly competitor. So they're kind of freelancing off those original ideas from basketball and just making their running and racing shoes specifically kind of just taking learnings and applying them.
That's kind of interesting. I'm trying to think of like when I remember first seeing carbon fiber, and it's got to be like Instapump Fury, obviously on the basketball side, the foams, and Jordan 11,
Reebok Attack,
Jordan
Shack Attack.
Oh yeah, Shack Attack. That's right. So that's probably actually the first one that I can think of.
That's
I don't know if do you remember which one?
That was the first one that I know of, like the Shack Attack.
Shack Attack, yeah. I forgot that Shack Attack has a carbon plank.
I think it's that one and the Fury are like very similar construction.
Yeah. Yep. Do you remember? I don't think there's around anymore, but do you remember a company called Zoot running shoes?
Zoot.
So there was a company in like the mid 2000s that was like, they had the big, huge branding on the side, and it just said Zoot, Zoot. That was the brand name. And I don't know how they became, obviously they weren't like crazy popular or anything, but I remember they were like pushing carbon fiber so hard at that point. And I just thought, this isn't like a new thing. Why are you guys pushing this so hard? But it is kind of interesting that like even on the performance side, right, we're still circling back on a lot of things. Like it's I don't know, like sneakers is so weird in a sense that all the retro stuff, right? Like we forget things and then we leave them off to the side for a while, and then somebody comes back and goes, you know what we should do? We should put, some sort of like self-lacing thing on it, or some sort of like dial on it, or some sort of, it's just
spring
like
blades.
Yeah, spring blades. Yeah.
Spring,
I hope we never go back to spring blades, but
Zig Tech.
Well,
Those
let's come
were
back.
those were
They
awful.
refine that. They come back.
Yeah.
to play.
Yeah, they were so clacky. Like when you could tell, like when somebody had them on behind you, like it was pretty weird.
Yep.
These
Yep.
Well,
these-
there is
Chris,
this.
are you gonna play in the? Oh, go ahead, Drew.
Oh no, go ahead, Mike. I'll say it after.
No, Chris, are you gonna play in the Adapt 11s if you're able to get your hands on
probably not. I probably won't be able to get
them?
them in the first place, but I don't think that that's really engineered for performance because we don't know exactly like all the tech yet. I
For
just
sure.
think that we know that there is the adapt system, but we don't know what their
Mhm.
cushion is, and so that would
Yeah.
be interesting. But I mean, there is the adapt BB, both 1 and 2, so it is possible. But yeah,
So speaking of adapt, do you think that it's feasible that becomes? I mean, I don't think
like
that
mainstream.
yeah, like I don't see that
Reasonable?
being well, yeah, like a reasonable piece of the puzzle in terms of performance shoes. It just seems
It's
so
got to
far
get way
away to me still, right?
Yeah.
Wait,
yeah,
yeah, that's a good
it's got to
point.
get way cheaper. Because like
Yeah.
even if you put it as a special needs item or market it as a special needs item, which is great because you're filling that void or whatever, the price per shoe, that's not really reasonable when they already have other expenses and stuff. So I think if it's a little bit more attainable and affordable, like a Fly Ease, then I think that would be cool.
Yeah, I think they've got to make some changes, like the placement of the plus minus buttons down on the sole like that.
Yeah.
It's just not convenient. They've got to go somewhere on the upper, right? I'm assuming cost is a reason they're down there. It's a lot cheaper to have them right next to the motor. Um, and the slimmer that motor can get, the better, because then you can actually put some Zoom Air like above it, or put a plate above it so you never feel it. Because there were some people that kind of felt that motor, that casing
Ooh.
on the first adapt, bigger players, because it was just Cushlon that was cushioning it. So I'm assuming they just beat down the Cushlon enough that they could feel it. So a couple of things to work out, and then the lockdown. I think they have to. How like on the Kobe 6, you can see the fly wire going various ways.
Mhm.
I almost think they have
Yeah.
to do the same thing with the adapt, where the wires crisscross a little and go back behind the heel, but also go kind of up towards the toes. Because right now they're kind of very traditional in the way they lace you up, and they don't give you enough ability to customize that fit. Because so they're going to work for some people, but there's so many feet out there, they're not going to work for the majority of people at this point.
Makes
Yeah,
sense.
that's a good point. It's actually kind of interesting too. Like I have some friends that design cycling shoes, and they're not into sneakers to that extent, but they're always they have a interesting take on like the BOA systems. And like if you're not familiar with the BOA system, that's essentially like a Puma disc system, right? Like cycling, and a lot of like trail running shoes have used that for a long time. Solomon's used that for a long time. But I always like have the same kind of thought that you just had, Drew, where it's like it just seems like we progress backwards to just say, here's these like straight over the foot strap, uh, like automated lacing or whatever you want to call it, and yet we've already gone down that path in other genres of footwear to know that we need to think differently about the way that works, right? And in basketball and running too, right? But it is really fascinating. I think it's one of the exciting things about, like, it's that weird thing in where the technology doesn't actually result in like performance the way it's marketed, but the thought and the idea and the like excitement that comes with the possibility just tends to get more people into the whole idea of a performance shoe. But what like, thinking of that, like, are there any other things for you, Chris, that in the basketball side of things that are like genuinely exciting for you? I mean, obviously a lot of the stuff we've talked about is just rehashed and reinvented type things. But are there any things that like you're interested in specifically in seeing like the progression of on the technology side?
Not really, because I even usually feel like less is more. So like I'm getting to the point to where like the basics, the way that they are, don't usually fail you. So if you could just tweak things here or there, make it lighter, make it more comfortable, make it feel like one thing or another, I think that that's more like important. And then I'm just usually excited for everything, to be honest, because everything's new sometimes. Like sometimes it could get redundant, but for the most part, the next shoe is like, ooh, what did they do? What did they tweak? And I'm excited to find out.
Yeah, I think most of the brands need to avoid playing it safe with their entire product line and at least have some part of it where they just let where it's designers gone wild, you know? They can just do what they want and who knows, they release like a $250 shoe, whatever,
They
they
have
just
some of those
throw
right now, like on sneakers with those weird, like stacked
well,
zoom units.
Oh,
yeah.
the
Well, I
Road
mean,
Warriors. Yeah.
But like it's
I
still
mean
like a thought.
performance though. I'm
Yeah,
talking performance. Like they are going crazy on the casual stuff. Don't get me wrong. Like I should caveat that. But if they have someone that can just throw, whatever against the wall on the performance side and just see if it works and see if people like it, I think that would be a benefit to everyone. And they can do their usual release them in limited quantities thing and get them to the athletes. And really, if the pro athletes start loving them, then that's how they know, okay, now we got to roll this out to more of our mainstream shoes.
No, because it makes sense. So to Chris's point of like less being more, we've seen the Kobe things and the Jordan 33 try the powerless auto lacing, the no lace systems, and those are kind of the throw it out there, see if it sticks type of design Drew was talking about, but it doesn't sell as well or perform as well as the good old basics that
I think
Chris
that
was talking about.
the price has like an effect on the brain usually. So like even though it's crazy, it's
Yeah.
new, and the engineering and developing was different, and so the price has to reflect all of that time and energy put into making it as playable as possible with these weird things, these gimmicks. And sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. But like that Kobe is 175 and like real, like plasticky. So I don't think a lot of people they're going to be like 175. I could tie my own laces because that's how I feel, like
Yeah.
personal. So like I go 150, 120 laces, like I'm good. You know what I mean? So I don't find a problem with it.
Yeah, so my thought was kind of on the opposite side of what Robbie was saying. So we have things like that out there, or that were there. But you look at like the Puma Clyde All Pro, the Curry 8 Flow, even I know the D Rose 11. There's things going back to a completely basic look and feel, but focusing more on like cushioning, ability to move in them and just impact protection. Do you think we're going to go back to things like that as more of a norm? And you have a couple outliers, like you have the LeBrons, are always going to be LeBrons. They're going to be that super, I don't want to say niche, but the luxury basketball shoe out there. You're going to have your KDs and things like that. But I feel like as a whole, a lot of the best performers out there, because that Puma is one of my favorite shoes I've got to, shoot around in,
Mine too.
and
Yeah.
it's nothing.
Yeah. No, I think that well, like first the variety is great because there's something for
Mm-hmm.
everyone. You know what I mean? Like I always like to say that there's not one shoe made for every person, but there is a shoe made for every person. So if you
Mm-hmm.
like and can afford, because I know people that I've hooped with that bought the Adapt BBs, the motorized ones. They're like, yeah, man, I love it. And I'm just like, ooh, that's weird because I didn't like love it. You know what I mean? But they love that purchase. They feel like that they get energy off of it. They look good,
Yeah.
they play good. So I think there's
Mm-hmm.
that side of it. So I'm just glad that there's the variety because you don't have to go like you're not forced. Like if you're an Air Jordan fan, you're not forced to be like, oh well, they're $400 and they auto lace. You'd be like, oh crap. So it's nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of makes me
Yeah,
think like like Drew's suggestion. It's almost like that like they need the ISPA but just on the performance side, right? Just like give these dudes their own floor, lock everybody else out. Not dudes, I mean men and women. I'm just saying dudes as humans in general. but like just give them a floor and let them run with it and see what happens, right? Because that to me is it's been a challenge, I think, in the design world on the performance side for quite a while, right? And part of that is, I would say like it's the fault of people like me who end up working in the marketing side of this business in some way, because it's easier for marketers to say, tinker, and now the Jordan is going to sell, right? Or Air Max, or whatever grandiose air bubble that you want to talk about, and that is like the default just slap it together type thing. But I actually think there's, related to this conversation, you guys are probably familiar with Dave Dombrow and Kevin Fallon. Used to do like the Speed Hack.
Yeah.
Like, so those guys have like obviously a crazy career path. Both of them have done amazing things in the footwear business for years now. But if you're not familiar with them, they basically call themselves Speed Hack Dave and Speed Hack Kevin on Instagram. They've got a small YouTube channel where they just literally hack stuff together as designers. So you might see, the forefoot of a, Boost shoe with double stack zoom or whatever, or they just are trying cool stuff. And it just made me think of that. So I wanted to shout them out because they're definitely a couple of people that I appreciate following, because they just, once in a while something pops up and you're just like, what the hell? How did they even think of
There's
this?
more people out there that do that than we realize. I've been sent pictures from like our Discord members of like their friends, and they live in China, and they're like, yeah, look what he made. And like, it's like a hearted bottom with something else, like a Nike top. And I was like, what the hell? And they look clean too. Like whoever put them together it's like a soul swap. So yeah, the Speed Hack guys, they do it completely different though, where they take stuff apart. Their videos are really cool. They're really short, unfortunately. I wish they were a little longer. But yeah, they put things together like the Zoom pods, those giant 4-foot ones, and then they put them in with like a crazy foam, and you're just like, "Dude, this is insane!" And so,
yeah. And they actually go run in them. That's what I love about it too. Is like there's like legitimate feedback, or they give it to like a professional runner and are like, a couple days later they have feedback from that. It's pretty wild. But I guess in like that same vein of thought, like what are kind of like Chris, if I guess both of you guys, if you were to take the top 3 or 4 performance elements of a shoes from maybe this year, the last couple of years, what are your favorite pieces so far recently, I guess?
Did you want to go first?
I can start on running. So running, I think the number one thing, even above like the super foams and carbon fiber, is kind of, most people will know it from Hoka. It's how the sole is. It has like Nike calls it rocker geometry. Saucony calls it speed roll, I think. I forget who calls it what, but it's basically curving the sole at the heel and at the toe so that your foot just rolls through that footfall. And I think honestly that helps more than most things, because it encourages people to kind of run in a very smooth motion. And I think we underestimate how many of us have janky like running styles. I mean, like people make fun of these NBA players when they're kind of running a little bit weird down the floor. And I was like, oh yeah, well wait till someone videos you, buddy. Yeah, I'm sure you're not going to like it, I mean, you should see the armchair people in the YouTube comments when Chris used to post a lot of basketball footage. They'd be making fun of Chris or some other guy in the footage. I'm like, what'd that guy do? He's just playing pickup basketball. Like, come on. But that one's really good. And I think the knits that they have, the ability to get so thin with the knit, still have some structure and have so much breathability is like huge for running, keeping your feet cool. Because I mean, I ran in the 90s, but now when I bought my Tailwind 4 this year, when it re-released, I was like, how did I run in this? This is like this would have, like, my feet are burning hot and I'm just wearing them casually. So we're now at a point where our feet can stay so much cooler as well. And I've got to think that has a great effect on, not just warm weather running, but just normal in race running, because you're dispensing heat a lot better.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I actually, I mean, up until the last few months, like, was trying to get back to running regularly over the last couple of years. And even just going from like a Pegasus, like, shield version, just designed to keep water out, versus the regular Pegasus, like I can like mentally feel my feet getting hot just thinking about the shield version, because it was so different, and I didn't really think about it, but really it's just like, like, yeah, you're wrapping your shoe in more plastic to keep the water out. Like, of course it's going to be hotter.
They flex different, like they'll pop a little bit. So they're not always the best thing. So, but yeah.
And just one more thing on that is, like, the Nike Alpha Fly, they use like a heat pressed fly knit. I can't even remember what it's called now, like vapor knit or something like that. And it just doesn't, it's like a knit, but it doesn't retain any water either. Like, the water just beads off and goes. And so that's another place where, like, all these little technological things, usually if you had a knit, it's going to absorb all that water, and your shoes are going to be heavier, which makes a difference to these people that are running marathons, and us that are running like just a 5K. Trust me, any little bit of weight makes a difference, right? But the ability of the water to just kind of get away from your foot and not stay on there is just like a little bit of weight savings that helps you out. Just a touch with performance, but it's there in the background.
Drew, have you tried to run in 4D? Because I tried one time and my legs are going to fall off. I got the worst shin splints, like plantar fasciitis started acting up. I want to just fall over in the middle of the street.
Yeah, I did a review on the 4D run 1.0. I only made it about 20. Like, I ran like 3 or 4 times in them for a total of like 20 miles, but it was just that, the 3D printed plastics, they aren't soft enough yet, because that was not quite like running in a Jordan.
Pretty close.
But it was close.
That sounds pretty hard. That's crazy. Those things are thick too.
Like no compression.
A Jordan 1 with 4D would be sick. If you were
there we go. We have a new video, Robert. We gotta make that.
I need the Zoom Strobel in a running shoe, but they haven't done that yet, and I'm not really sure why.
It should be in everything at this point.
Done that?
Allegedly, the new Tom Sachs is.
We can't get that. There's a 0% chance any of us will get that.
Tom Sachs thought of it though. So Tom's
going to the moon or going to Mars. That's happening.
It's going to be one of those those like standard corporate America situations where, like, somebody high up is like, well, Tom thought it worked, so how come we don't make it work for everyone else? Right? Like, so we'll see it at the end of 2021. So I guess, like, I'll throw that kind of same question to you, Chris. Like, what in terms of the basketball stuff is interesting to you over the last like year or two?
The way that Nike's been able to repurpose its own technology over and over and over again and make it feel different every time, I think is pretty impressive. Like, I'm not gonna lie. So the way that they've done the Strobels, the PG4 felt like super good for what it's just a Air Jordan 11 Air unit essentially, but brought up closer to your foot. And then they're doing the same thing with Zoom. The unlocked Zoom that they put with the 34 and 35, it just feels super crazy and bouncy, but still stable. So when they do those things, like, it's just like, how can you make Zoom Air different than what I've felt over the past 20 years? And they're like, oh, dude, don't even worry about it, man. I got you.
Hold my beer. I can't
believe it. Yeah. Like, okay, Zoom Air, whatever. Yeah. And then they do it and you're just like, all right, like, that was so cool. So, so I just think that that's dope that they're able to do that. the new brands, like I was saying, like the stuff that's from overseas, they're doing things that, or with things like foams and stuff that we haven't seen in the States yet, with that like kind of bursty stuff. So I think that's pretty interesting. So
how does that, like just specifically that Aaron Gordon shoe, how would you compare that, like feeling that foam, out of the shoe? Is that similar to like when you feel like Zoom or Boost out of a shoe, or like softer, or
no, you can like squish it more, so it almost feels hollow. So
huh.
It's interesting because the way that you push it, but it bounces right back afterwards instead of like an air unit that feels a little dense. So that's just like the only way to put it, because this stuff, when you look at it, it has just a bunch of air pockets, like a packing peanut, and so that's the kind of like there's all those tiny air units in it, and so it's interesting that they were able to come up with something like that, but it still be like technically a foam. It's just crazy.
That's pretty
Different
wild.
than air for sure.
So I'm gonna let all of you chime in on this if you want to, but I haven't done any performing this year, so I'm gonna stay completely out of it. What's your top 3 to 5 / if you need to go further, I understand, shoes of the year,
performance wise,
yeah. I mean, because obviously I think we're all of that age where naturally we end up picking a bunch of retros that we just been waiting for since the last time it came out properly, right? So trying to stick to the performance at least. That's why I got to give the broad range, go from 3 to 7, 10, because it varies.
2.
I can start with running, since it was easy to run this year. I mean, in most places where they didn't quarantine you actually in your like house, like I heard from some people in South Africa that there was 6 weeks there where the only way they could leave their house was to go to the grocery store, which would have driven me completely insane. So I'll let Chris think a little bit, since it's a tough year for basketball because so much testing had to be done outdoors versus indoors. But on the running side, Brooks, for trail running, they made a shoe called the Catamount, which really cool nitrogen infused midsole, which they have a really cool formulation there. So it's sort of the same as Fuel Cell in New Balance, but different formulation. Also kind of has that packing peanut type look, but not as much so as the 361 stuff. And the Brooks Catamount, that's a great trail shoe, really sticky. The lugs are far enough apart, you don't get rocks stuck in it, and the upper is just super comfortable. On kind of your best everyday shoe, I would say probably, let's think. So we've got the Nike React Infinity Run, which is pretty impressive because it came out, I think, January 4th of this year. So it was like the very first shoe to launch of the entire year, and it was people's favorite throughout the year. And I think the secret to its success was they took React, which is a great foam for running. They curved it with the rocker geometry. They put a little stability rail on the back, and then they also made the last wider than the typical Nike running last, because the swoosh is in. And so you've got all these people that want to run in Nikes because it's cool, but they can't because they can't stuff their feet in there because they hurt so badly. Because when you're running, your feet expand. And in basketball, it's not that big of a deal because you don't want side to side movement that much. But in running, if it starts to expand and the shoe is too small width-wise, you're hurting. So that's probably the best every day. Probably a runner-up would go to the Brooks Glycerin 18, which is just a very standard running shoe. It's like if it's not broke, don't fix it. It's got their type of EVA, but it's actually they have like their regular EVA, and then they have their EVA that's like Cushlon, and that's what the Glycerin uses. Is very similar to Cushlon, and it's a great shoe to run in, and nice ample last for most people. Brooks is really on the way up as far. I mean, they've been around a long time, but I think more people are starting to see them as more than that, little brand from Seattle. Then on the racing side, pretty much everyone's caught up to the Vaporfly. I would say Nike's probably still got the lead slightly with the Alphafly because it's just so crazy. I wouldn't wear them casually like LeBron was doing the other day. It's not like, I mean, if you just try them on, you'll be like, this would bug the crap out of me if I just had to stand here still with these on or just walk. And they're not meant for that. They get better the faster you go, and the more like weight you're putting in your footfalls. And then so they're probably just slightly number one. And then right below them, the latest Adidas, the Adios Pro, which instead of a carbon plate in the forefoot, they used 5 rods. So they're 5 carbon rods that are curved. So it actually mimics the metatarsal of your foot. And they just released that shoe, 3 months ago when I did the review. And already there's been a bunch of world records set in it. And they've started to get the people on the podium right there alongside Alphafly and Vaporfly. And so it's a very, very impressive shoe. It's one of the stiffer shoes I've run in, but it's not like stiff in the arch. It's stiff in the toe, whereas you bend it, it just immediately goes back and gives you that extra bounce. So that probably covers most of it. But I've got I love shoes, so I've got a bunch of them. So if anybody that's listening can hit me up on Twitter, tell me about your foot, and I'll come back to you with a few suggestions. I like doing that.
Well, I need a new runner, Drew, so I might have to hit you up because they laugh at me because I'm still running my Zoom Fly SPs, and they're literally under my desk, beat to dog crap. Like, I just love the shoe, man, but it is done. And they're always like, it's time for a new pair.
We can get you an upgrade.
I mean, I have to kind of second what Drew was saying because some of the rare new shoes I got that weren't retros this year, I tried a pair of the Brooks Launch 7s, and it's not the glycerin, but I did really enjoy those Brooks. Like, they were a fun little ride. And him and I have had a couple talks about Ons too, like the Cloud Nova. That's more of like I believe like a fashionable like hangout shoe. But those were really cool. And then the Cloud Boom was really cool. I'm slow, so I can't even give any kind of feedback like he's giving. But like that shoe was cool. I like that one. So yeah, man, if you're willing to try something outside of your normal lane, both of those are very good options. Both brands are pretty good options. We'll keep the theme today of other brands. So we'll keep that going.
Well, mine were 2 basketball shoes and a trainer, which I typically don't ever buy trainers. But the first basketball shoe, actually, one of the only ones really at the plan this year was that Adidas BYW X2. This shoe got 0 love from the States, and this might have been one of the best basketball shoes I've ever played in. It took that BYW and chopped it in half, got you breathable like mesh material, and it just performed way better because they locked down that boost a whole lot more. And I got a nice court feel to it because you can look at the you probably can't see it on the camera, but the plate in the middle has a big hole in it, and it gave you a little bit more court feel when you're running. So I'm not just feeling boost. So I really like that one a ton. Of course, we already talked about the Puma, the Clyde All Pro. I got to just kind of walk around in it casually, but shoot around outside in it. But it was just super. It felt good out the box. Initial wear, didn't have any break-in time, so that one was a favorite. But then the JJ4, since literally all I'm doing is either running or going to the gym, like at our apartment complex, and it's not anything like super high tech, but it's like the fused material, that foot ride puck in the back. It's just super nice to have in the gym. It's not.
Puma.
I feel like a lot of trainers sometimes are bulky
like
and
very
just,
similar,
too tight, but it's like a wider set. It really they kind of mesh to my foot, and it's really comfortable doing multiple things from running on a treadmill to lifting. It kind of lets you do everything the way it's built. So I don't know. Those are my 3 for the year.
Well, and the JJ4 is only $100.
Yeah,
you get a lot for that. That's a shoe where you get a lot for
the
your
trainer
money.
version of the
my step
Puma All Pro.
for Christmas.
Like very similar, like and placement, the puck in the back.
Oh yeah,
That
yeah.
they're both kind of like ETPUs or that type of feeling. So yeah, those are very similar, and they're both affordable on top of that, and both from brands that you wouldn't think about. So it's
right.
There you go.
I mean, for the affordable thing, the one basketball shoe that's like playable I see next to Chris's head is the the BB Evo. Like those, I quite enjoyed those shoes this year, the high top and the low.
I forgot about those.
Which shoe? This one,
right? No, it's a really cool shoe. So
you want to play in those?
Yeah, the Converse.
Oh no,
are those all pros?
That's the leather.
Oh, see from here, that's just how good the EVO is.
No, actually, that is a good shoe, but that's like
it looks like the new one from here. But
so yeah, those were that was a cool way to like come back to basketball.
Very cool. The G4 is pretty nice too. Converse has done some cool things that people didn't really quite pay much attention to.
Hopefully soon.
Draymond's gonna be back on the court this year. He'll show some love.
But yeah, my personal my personal picks. I don't get a. Like,
all right, Chris.
This year was wild, so I did not get to play in as much as I normally do. So that kind of sucks. But this is like a really loose top three. My number one pick would be the Puma All Pro. I just think that they feel almost like a better Kobe 9. It's so wild that you can like and my pair is sitting right there. So like very fond memories with the Kobe 9. Great traction, cushion, a little bit of everything, and so I get all of that, and it almost looks like the damn shoe too. So I think that those are fantastic. The KD13s, KDs have been like pretty affordable for the most part, like throughout its history or whatever. And these guys, with the amount of cushion that you get for the price, as long as they fit you well, then I think that's a great shoe. I really want to put the 34 SE from Jordan Brand here, but it's so close to last year's model, which was my favorite also, the 34. So I'm going to leave those off, but that's a good shoe if you could get it, because it was only in, I think it was Chicago. So that was a pain. But the Anta GH1, believe it or not, the Gordon Hayward shoe, and that shoe is just fucking dope. So that would probably be my third spot, and it would just, again, covered all the bases. It just doesn't come past like a size 10.5 or whatever, so half the people can't even fucking try it out, which sucks.
That's still crazy.
I should give you my favorite basketball shoe too. It's definitely the LeBron 18. I've always been a LeBron fan, and I guess I'm big enough where I didn't quite have some of the stability issues that Chris did, which he didn't have that many, but just a few. But I really liked what they did with the heel air and then the zoom kind of sitting inside it. I really felt a bounce from the LeBron 18 that, man, I don't know that I felt since could be KD 9 or LeBron 10. Kind of with the full length exposed zoom air. Very, you don't sit as low to the ground in the LeBron 18, but I really liked them, except for the tongue. The tongue, hopefully they'll fix that on some future colorways. It's just kind of bulky, kind of doesn't bend correctly. But once you get going, you can kind of forget about it.
It's kind of funny because like I just watched Chris's review. I don't know when it was. You just did it like in the last week or whatever on the LeBron 18 lows. And I didn't realize the difference in the tongues. I haven't bought a LeBron for like 3 years probably, just because price wise, I just don't, it's like, no thanks. But I do like the 18 low, and I was looking at them. And of course, like your video popped up, around the time that I was just kind of casually looking at them. But I didn't even like just, I don't know how to say it. Like, sounds bad, but like just general like shopper consumer mentality. Nick that day didn't even notice the difference in the tongues, and then I watched the video. I was like, "Oh shit, I gotta go back and look at all these
like
colors because I didn't even
see it." It might be like, you know what I mean, to some people, especially depends on what you're wearing that day. If you happen to be able to try them on, which this year we might, you know what I mean, just didn't happen. But yeah, so if I would have tried that on the store and felt the tongue, I'd have been like, I'd still have to buy it because I got to review it. But
Yeah.
it wouldn't be like one of those like, oh, I can't wait to have my ankle get shredded by that thing, you know? So
But when the good is good, like both of you brought up how many times can you keep switching up zoom, and the LeBron since since they went Air Max, like let's just do anything we can with Max and Zoom, mix them together. Let's try pods. Let's mix them inside of each other. And I haven't had the 18 yet, but I've had every single one since I think I've had almost every LeBron model. They keep surprising me on what they can do with the LeBron Max 18 and Zoom.
That they took some of their most comfortable foam on. They smacked it in between full-length Zoom Strobel that you would get in the KD shoe, plus an Air Max that you would typically get in the LeBron shoe. So you got cushion on steroids, and it's mad comfortable, man. Like that's a trippy shoe to play in. They're crazy.
I gotta try that one.
The 12 is still the crazy. I love the little hex, geometric shape pods, and they did that on trainers too. That's just the most comfortable. Like every step you can feel a little IPS zoom go off
from Jordan.
I love that.
So those things are always fun when you can feel like a spring under your step. What you would think like Nike Shox would feel like that's yeah.
What it's supposed to feel.
Didn't those Jordans come with a tool? And if you lost the tool,
you can switch the heel cushion
with the
was like the 20, and then the other set has Zoom. But the Zoom and they're so tiny.
Yes.
So it's cool, but it's not like super functional, which is probably why we don't see it. But it would be. Yeah. Well. That's the weirdest part about Zoom is sometimes like it could feel
in today's episode of Zoom that didn't
and then
work.
Other times you like hear that it's going to be on a shoe, you get excited, you put it on, and you're like, where? Yeah, and it happens.
Where is it?
Yeah.
Or you hear it's going to be there and it's not there at all. So it could be.
Shots fired. Yeah. Well, it's like the.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy though because the concept of that switchable cushioning, right, is such a selling point. I think it's like even when you got 21, I think of the 2011s, right? I never swapped those cartridges out. Once I decided this was the one.
The 2012 had 6 options.
They're like drawers it came with. You can this one and this one. Boxes. Yeah. I gotta hate selling those when I looked at champs. Like, dude, I don't want to get
on
this
these
out the
Kobe
bag. Do you want it or not?
And even the Converse shoe, and you can take out the midsole, but there's nothing to replace it with. So it's like, why is it like this if I can't have options? Like, why aren't there other midsoles that you can buy and put in there? So I think it's like a small opportunity there because I'd be like, dude, if I get one shoe and then just switch it around, I like that stuff. I think it's cool.
That'd be dope.
Yeah, me too.
Well, Nick, you're the last one, man. What's your favorite?
Dude, I've spent the last 3 weeks. Look, I'm gonna just show you. I got the heating pad right behind me still because my back still hurts. So, yeah. The only thing I could talk about performance is I could talk about performance wool socks. I picked up some nice recycled material Dickies socks. Been keeping my toes nice and comfy walking around the house for the past month. So that's about all I can speak to.
You just did your video on the AM3 Radiant Red though, and I swear walking around in those things, I'm almost thinking I could run in them because the Phylon is so soft compared to other retros that I'm it's almost like playing a trick on me. Oh, maybe I could run in these.
I threw them on just to walk around the house when they came in, and I was like, okay, I'm here for this. It's crazy though because I actually still have this sitting here next to me, but this was the history of Air One, right? And this tongue is like an SB tongue. It's so thick, and I just didn't like. I mean, I haven't really worn those shoes a lot in a long time because I beat them up when they first came out, but it's crazy to see the differences, you know. And I don't have like an actual decent one to compare to, but I would assume that you'd run into the same, you know, situation as you were talking about with the was it the Triax 4s? What did you say? We bought the
Tailwind 4s.
Oh, the Tailwind 4s. Yeah.
Yep.
But like, I love that shoe too. I mean, I wish it was like I got a pair of those. That came out like like 2019, right? Originally, and I think I got a pair.
Yeah.
I was like, it's like kind of like it felt super stiff, and I don't know. It's weird how Nike does the retro thing, right? Like we could talk for hours about that because, even like a couple of Chris's videos this year, it's like I think you did the with the Flight 89s, right? Where it's like,
wild.
What the hell is this? It doesn't look like a picture. The cushioning is different. The materials are different. Like.
That's Nick's favorite shoe.
And I just want them all to be that good, right? But yeah.
No, so I'm willing to bet money all of us have done what Drew said, and like you're trying to pack for a vacation, and you have like an Air Max 3, and you're like, if I wanted to get a workout in,
he ain't lying.
I could in theory run in
hella
these,
comfortable.
right? Instead of having to bring another like running shoe.
Yeah.
We've all done that.
Oh, dude.
No, I bought 4 pairs. I love that thing. Beautiful.
Dang, y'all about to make me buy a pair.
That,
I haven't bought a new
a casual shoe.
So
like
you should,
like that one.
You should.
Like
They're good.
Nike.
Yeah.
And the people on the team to recraft it has even tweaked release by release to make it so that Radiant Red pair was as close. And they supposedly put 4-foot air back in the midsole and just everything, the packaging, the card. Like I were able to get a pair of Air Max 90s in 1990, but I feel like I was in 1990 opening that box, you know? And that's, so, and I know that a lot of people are like, you can't pick a retro, or you shouldn't pick a retro as like your shoe of the year. But like you were saying, that past release that you've got is so bad. And I don't mean that in like a bad way. I'm just saying is just that something, that telephone game where like things get lost in translation. That's what.
Yep.
Like. So, yeah, like it's so crazy. It happen, you know, and so you're just like, man, what the heck? And
Who
so
put this Air Max
you get used to seeing it a certain way, and then when they go ahead and finally put some effort into it, where you're just like, dude, you nailed like every aspect. Like, why don't you treat the 89s like this? Because I love those, you know, and whatever other shoe, because that would just be fantastic. Just I don't want like an upgrade. Just treat it right, like the way that it was.
Yep.
Do it like again.
That one.
Can we get some good SC Trainer retros?
Trying to find them now.
SC Trainer retros. That shoe has been butchered so many times throughout the years. When
that
they bring
one,
it back.
the Trainer ones that
give me a
for
good
the
SC retro.
this year, that's
SC
another
High.
one where like,
give me that good old Bo Jackson. That's not doo-doo.
They're hella comfortable.
Give me a good one.
Like those are the 90s, man.
Oh, that looks so good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was my only gripe.
They set around too, like, because they're like, "Oh, it's not a dunk. I don't want to buy it." I'm like,
SB label now, but like, why?
That's one of the most comfortable shoes.
No, not all the time, but like that's what I mean with this one. Like, why label that one when it was so good in SB when you could have
not all the time though.
Treatment. Maybe. To me, I think the original
easy to funnel the like the hype. Like,
I
we keep selling all these SBs. Let's go ahead and start funneling everything to it. Maybe we'll sell them out.
It's
I agree.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe Travis Scott just has it in his contract that he'll only promote SB and Jordan, so that's why.
And 271.
That's when he wore those.
That one time.
Yeah, they were dark.
He's never gonna wear those again.
Those things are awful.
I always forget the good one.
Just to end on that note, the 34 sat at Buffalo Exchange, his Travis Scott 34. Yeah. I think it was $80, and I was still like, "Nah, I'm good." No, the 33. It was the
33.
Yeah, 33.
Yeah, I remember that at All Star. Like All Star in Charlotte. No one was touching those. Like, and that was back when, they had made a ton of Kobe 4 draft days, I believe. And so, like, even the Kobe 4 draft days, I mean, they were moving when I was just sitting in this Foot Locker and watching, and most of the signature shoes were moving, but no one was touching those 33s. No one.
Oh, they hit the hash walls, like the
Oh,
military green ones he
people-
did, those silver ones. I remember going to the outlet here, and it's like, oh, look, they're all here, and I still don't want any of these.
That shoe hurt. You could
No,
feel
that
the
one
tech.
that one messed me up a
You
little
could feel
bit.
I could feel all the tech underneath.
Yeah,
That shoe was
it cut some holes in my arches because I had like yanked
to me.
the so tight. Like I like my shoes to be tight, which is why I prefer laces because I can make it as tight as I need without all that weird. The cables sit under your foot, so they just rub. And yeah, it tore me.
Yeah. Oh, dang.
Yep.
Well, between you doing that and then Drew running in Yeezy 380s, I don't know how you ran in those, by the way. I was like, what is he doing? His feet are going to fall off.
Yeah. I mean, they got boost.
Yeah.
They weren't very stable, though.
But does it
They
work?
were not very stable.
You're just going side to side.
So does the Stan Smith, but you don't run in that.
I just bought some 350s, and so I asked a bunch of our followers. I was like, "Should I run in them and do a review?" And like half of them were like, "Don't do that to yourself." And the other half, the masochists, were like, "Yeah, do it. See what happens."
You'll be swimming in those uppers. Your foot's gonna go one way, it's gonna go right.
Don't do it.
I mean, it's good that you got at least half, the people looking out for you, right? Because they actually appreciate what you do. The rest are just like, fuck it, just go for it, Drew. We'll see you later.
That's how it goes.
Let it burn.
Well, they're the ones that follow all the. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was saying they're probably the ones that follow those Instagram accounts with all the fails.
Where's Drew at? Did he make it on there yet?
Yeah.
Let's merge
I
together.
do have to say, it's WearTesters and Fail Army.
So
it is what it is.
I don't know, man.
Oh God.
I mean, hey, if it gets the views up, right?
It'd be interesting.
I'm sure there's plenty of blooper reels over the years, right?
Crossover potential.
Yeah. All right, so I wanted to obviously shout out to I think like the We Are Underdogs still have pre-order up for the NW one, right? So maybe talk a little bit about that. I also was thinking about this, and I should have asked you before, but now's as good a time as any. If you could do a collab Nightwing shoe with one of the brands this year, who would it be? Because you've had a pretty solid run of collabs. I don't know if you know that. Like we've talked about like getting your own shoe many times over the years, and you've got a nice little checklist going now.
I've collaborated with Brand Black, which is a smaller brand, but a brand nonetheless, and we created 2 shoes, and I really like one of them is right there. That's the rare metal and in the Nightwing S colorway. But like it's cool every time. Like it's not like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I got to do this. No, it's like, oh my God, I got to do this again. And so, so it's always like super cool. This one's a little bit different because it's with nobody that anybody's ever heard of. And I think that that's probably the coolest part. So plus they're good at making shoes like well done, but they never have done basketball before. So that's like, I'm like curious, like, can we do this or something that's playable? And so far it's been good. So this is one of them. And yeah, this is just a cool shoe, man. It's so weird, like hooping in these, especially because like you can only really do it outside right now, so I don't want to like ruin them, but it's my only real option. But hooping in those and like just getting some shot, I was just like, man, this is crazy. So because it's like you know what I mean, like it's cool to wear to Jordan, but it's like yours, so it's dope. But and then we got this one. All the pre-orders do stop, I think, in December, but this is like the tribute colorway. So. And then we got that
one sold out, didn't it?
One too. These ones are dope.
Yep.
Yeah, and then we brought it back too, and then they closed more orders. So yeah, it was cool. But yeah, it's been interesting to do that because that's like super hard. Like people are like, oh, why can't you do this? You know what I mean? Like everybody's always got to critique stuff like super harsh, which I do too, but with a heart in mind, I feel sometimes. You know what I mean? At least that's how it is in my head. But to do it yourself, you're just like, dude, that shit is not easy, man. So hats off to everybody that actually makes them because it's really, really cool.
Well, I think the coolest thing of it that like people have followed Chris for a long time and they respect his opinion on basketball shoes. So now that he's had a chance to make his own, they really showed up and supported him. And we were able to get, because the molds opened because he did his own tooling for what, 8 through 13? Or was it 7 through 13?
I think it was 7.
7 through 13.
Yeah, which is crazy in and of itself because it's including half sizes.
Yeah.
So.
And so, which opens the door right now. On December 18th, we ended a colorway contest, which they've done before with some of the creators. And so we've got a whole bunch of really cool colorways and people have tweaked things about the shoe. But since all the tooling molds are open, it leaves open the possibility of doing more stuff with colorways and stuff like that. And it's super cool to see like Chris live the dream as someone that just is so much loves the tech. I think myself and a lot of our audience kind of put ourselves in his shoes. He's kind of the voice of all of us as he unboxes shoes and really digs into the tech and how good a brand did at reproducing something or what they're trying that's new. And it's just cool to see someone that's like us get their own shoe and then get it out to the rest of us to be able to check out too.
Dope.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
It's scary too because all of a sudden they're like, "Why didn't you?" And it's like, "Oh," you know what I mean? So
they kind of flip it on you after all the years of seeing you get to break other people's work down. You're like, wait a second.
Yeah. So I just hope people like them, but I'm super appreciative of the support and the opportunity. So because it's not something that's just given to anybody, which is crazy. So you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. Congratulations.
I'm gonna start calling you Gina Davis. You're in the league of your own, man.
Great movie, by the way.
It is a great movie.
That's a good
one. Right on. Well, and I don't know if Drew, you mentioned something else that was coming in the works.
So we, much like you guys, we have our own Discord community as well, and kind of helped keep the lights on. Well, in our case, mostly, I would say 100% of what people put into Discord goes right into buying shoes that then get reviewed. Because we don't get as many free shoes as honestly some people assume when they first find the channel. There are brands that send us shoes on occasion. We're always thankful, and you'll know because Chris will always thank them in the video and point it out because he wants people to know when a shoe has been provided, just so we're being completely transparent. But with our Discord community, we do shoe giveaways, and there's actually a member/audience member that due to some unfortunate circumstances in his life, which Chris will get into in a video, wants to kind of pass his shoe collection on to people that will use it and enjoy it. So be on the lookout for kind of a special video that Chris is going to do that's going to talk about this person and all they've gone through, and then what they're doing to give back to the sneaker community while they still can. And I think it'll be something really cool. And it'll hopefully kind of also show what we're all about, really about connecting the sneaker community. I mean, that's why we like you guys at Sneaker History, because it's about kind of these friendships we form along the way, and just getting to talk and laugh and build relationships around something that really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, sneakers, but is super fun for all of us to follow.
Yeah, most definitely. Well said. So I guess last but not least, let's I mean, everybody knows you guys, but I'm going to have you give your social so they can follow along and get your advice. And actually, I'm going to just ask everybody that's watching to harass Drew until we get the video review of the Easy 350 running shoe.
I second that.
Let's just put a GoPro on him and see what happens.
There we go. So from WearTesters perspective, you can follow at WearTesters on Twitter, at WearTesters on Instagram. Both of those places we post all the reviews. We have WearTesters.com where we have reviews, running, cross-training, basketball. Now on WearTesters, the YouTube channel, you've got mostly Chris doing reviews on basketball shoes and retros, but we're starting to kind of broaden our roster a little bit in terms of who appears on there. But we've just got to pass Chris's quality check for video first. And then I'm specifically at Drew Whitcomb on both Instagram, on Twitter. So I'm mostly on the WearTesters Twitter as well. So either way, hit me up personally, hit up WearTesters Twitter with any running questions. And I might not get back to you immediately, but I will eventually get back to you.
Yeah, and then you can just find me on both Instagram and Twitter at Nightwing2303. And it's pretty simple. You tweet me and I'll respond.
Right on. Well, I definitely appreciate you guys connecting with us. Obviously, love what you guys do and happy to support you guys any way we can. I think I speak for Robbie and Mike as well. Like, we feel the exact same way about you guys in terms of the community, and it's been really awesome because, you know, I feel like we're just kind of like the little brother in the relationship in the terms of like the way you guys are progressing. We're just kind of like doing the same kind of thing, learning how this all works. So, but you guys have people that are asking you to essentially risk your lives, and we haven't made it to that level of fan base yet.
Not yet.
Basketball.
We just get people wanting to risk it all. We don't get people wanting to risk it.
And they literally were right when COVID started and the whole country was essentially locked down. People were like, "Hey, Chris, where's that performance review?" And he's like,
I gotta watch something, right?
I live in the U.S. What the heck? I can't.
And imagine being locked inside, reading lots of those comments, and you're like, I can't get out, you know, and you can't respond either because then you end up looking like a dick. So.
That's your fail army collab, right? It's you out there crossing over the Grim Reaper, aka COVID.
That might be insensitive right now. I think it's too early.
Yeah, it probably is. I apologize.
Yeah. Mid 2021, if the vaccine hasn't made us all zombies, you might see
that. Cool. Well, we definitely appreciate you guys. And anything else, Robbie, Mike?
Thank you, too. I appreciate you guys coming on.
Yeah,
thanks for having us.
Awesome.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you.
Right on. We'll appreciate you guys spending your time and listening, watching on YouTube. Make sure you like, favorite, subscribe. That's all new to us, but we appreciate you, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Bye.
See you.